that'd be perfect.
Thought about standing, but since this is such a friendly group, this might be a little more conversational. I wanted to come and share a few observations with all of you, but first I wanted to express my gratitude to all of you. We were very thoughtful and very intentional about bringing this group together. Probably a lot of different ways in terms of addressing some of the issues that we were seeing on the streets, but I am absolutely convinced that the collective wisdom and hard work of all of you has really given us a great product to work from. And I so appreciate the fact that I'm sure we all came to the table with preconceived ideas about the problems on the streets and what we thought about it and what the solutions might be. And I think we probably come away with a much broader understanding and a broader understanding of how we might move forward to deal with some of the issues on the streets. Our co-chairs, Sylvia and Chris, I want to thank you, and before all of you leave, please let me take an opportunity to come and shake your hand and thank you personally for your time. I also want to thank city staff who's put a lot of time and energy into this as well. Citizens who've been here and participated, who've sent us voicemails and social media comments, all of that has been very much appreciated. The other thought that I had, and I've been getting regular briefings from staff, is that as challenging as the streets issues are, and we have seen it, and I think we've seen it increase in our community, I'm struck by the fact that if we didn't have the network we have, whether it's Housing Hope, Salvation Army, Cocoon House, United Way, and all of those organizations and good-hearted citizens contributing and trying to make this a better community, our challenge would be a lot greater than it is. And so I'm mindful of that. I don't want to forget that. I don't want to forget saying thank you. The Gospel Mission, an incredible organization. And as mayor, I've had an opportunity. I attend most all of these functions. And like many of you, I'm sure I personally contribute. But I think this is a moment in time as a community where we have a great opportunity to look at solutions on a much bigger scale than maybe we ever have before. And that's what I hope the challenge for all of us is. And before I go on with that, and I'll come back to that, the other thing that I think is not lost on me, it's not lost on law enforcement, it's not lost on the businesses and moms and dads and grandpas and grandmas that take their kids to the library or other places in the community. We all do expect a certain level of behavior of our fellow citizens. And when we see actions that are unlawful or put people's safety at risk, we will take action as a law enforcement organization. And I think we're blessed in this community to have a police department that shows great judgment, great courage, great restraint. I think any of us can look around the country and hear of situations and circumstances where that is not the case. And I feel very blessed as a citizen and as your mayor to have the police department and legal system that we have. We're very fortunate to have that, and I know that our folks will always act with compassion. The chief and I have been out a couple times. We've been on the streets at night. We've talked to people who are homeless. I've been with other officers, whether it's National Night Out, and there's always respect and compassion shown to those that we talk to on the street. And I know Dan will never change that direction with his department. So how do we move forward, and what does moving forward look like? I gave you a preview a few weeks ago of some of the ordinances that we're working on that I think will address some of the symptoms and possibly some of the behavior that we're seeing that is of concern to our citizens. Alcohol impact zones, for example, or panhandling in intersections where we potentially are creating a safety hazard. But I do think that we need to look at a holistic approach when we're looking at individuals. We wouldn't expect any less. If we were dealing with a city or a county or a company that we work for, we would want to be treated holistically. And I'm hopeful as David Hall continues with this effort, what my expectations will be that if we deal with legal issues or law enforcement issues, that we look at the full spectrum of what those issues look like. It doesn't do any good to put people with mental illness in jails. It just doesn't work. And we've seen this revolving door of repeat offenders, and we know that doesn't work. We have, and we will work with the county to put the resources that we have to work to help people. We know that we have about a dozen folks in our community that are high users of services, whether it's emergency rooms, contact with law enforcement, contact with the court system, and we're going to focus on those who are most vulnerable first to get them the help and assistance and treatment that they need. But it's going to be, I think, a few things that we're going to find out as a community where our values are. And by that I mean we put Band-Aids on a lot of issues. We have, all of us as citizens contribute $3 per citizen to a human needs fund. We get block grant funds of about $1 million a year. Many of the agencies here are benefactors of those funds to provide the services that you provide. But are we as a community going to step up and talk to our citizens? And again, this isn't just a City of Everett issue. This is an issue that I plan to take to the county executive and every mayor in Snohomish County, because it's not the City of Everett's responsibility to solve all of this issue. And it's not the City of Everett's sole responsibility to provide all the services necessary. Every community is going to need to participate in this. And we see examples every day of communities and citizens that get fed up, a law or an ordinance is passed, and it just moves the issue or the problem down the street. And that's not how we're going to solve this problem. I think it's going to be critically important for us to come together, and this is one of the tasks that I will ask David to work on, and all of you from time to time will be participating in this. I think at some point we're going to have to ask our citizens in this county if they're willing with their pocketbook to vote for funds necessary to provide housing and shelter on a much bigger scale than we are today. And I think that's going to be, it's going to be a defining moment, I think, for all of us as a community. I think a question was asked earlier, what are some of the other cities doing around the region and frankly around the country? And we have some knowledge of that, but there are an awful lot of communities in Puget Sound that are looking at us and looking at this committee's work in terms of addressing some of the issues that we're talking about. We're going to have to ask for more help from the state, and we're going to have to ask for more help from the federal government. But I want to be very frank with all of you that much of this is going to fall to all of us as a community to solve and to work on. A lot of these folks need mental health treatment, they need medication, they need treatment for substance abuse, and we need to be part of that solution collectively. So this effort is going to go on in a big way. David Hall has, I think, done a remarkable job really leading this legal effort, and he will be the point person for this. Deborah Wright will be working on it, and Wendy and other folks in our at the city and other departments in the city. And I'm anxious to come back to all of you and report out the work that we've done. And we will take a holistic approach. The other thing I wanted to mention, I think I may have touched on this before, but if I haven't, it bears repeating, that when we have a situation where a law is broken or some kind of situation has occurred, I would rather see us, if there's a penalty for that, because frankly, if we do a monetary penalty with someone who's out of a job, the likelihood of us ever seeing any revenue from that or any positive result from that is probably, slim and none. But if we can put some of that resource, some of that consequence back into helping our community be a better community. It might be cleaning up arterials. It might be cleaning up some of the homeless camps that I've seen out pounding yard signs for my daughter and crawling into bushes trying to find her yard signs and the stickers. There's a lot of areas around our city that can benefit from help, and I think it sends a good and positive message to our citizens that if there are consequences for illegal behavior, there are compassionate consequences. So I think that's about all that I wanted to share with you, other than, again, to tell all of you, I can't thank you enough. I know how challenging this has been. I know how much work you've put into it, and I will forever be grateful for you doing that and sticking with us, and again to our co-chairs who've done a remarkable job. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions or any clarifications that I can. If I don't know or it's to be determined, I'll tell you that. So if you're, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So anybody?
Ray, we all appreciate being invited to be a part of this process. It's been a big education, I think, to all of us, and we, I think, take some pride in having come together around some conclusions. There are a lot of recommendations here, and it's a very complex issue with a very complex strategy around implementing almost every one of these 63 different initiatives. And we do know that the work is only begun, because this is a document that gives some guidance and recommendations, but it doesn't really detail out an implementation plan. We appreciate the communication plan that's been laid out and the time that the two co-chairs are going to spend helping to communicate to our community. Appreciate your leadership on this and your interest in talking to the other mayors. And we've signed up now to for at least 2 more meetings, but we'll come back and listen to and maybe dialogue regarding the implementation plan. I'm wondering, are there specific ways members of the task force could continue to support this effort in addition to coming back 6 and 12 months from now to get a report? Are there any concrete ideas or suggestions or requests that you might make of this group now that we have been educated in a sense on this issue?
Well, one of the thoughts I had, I'd like David to continually communicate with you as to the progress we're making, whether it's an ordinance, whether it's dialogue with the county, whether a meeting has occurred, and when it has occurred with other county leaders. And so I think we'll ask David to make sure that we keep an ongoing dialogue with all of you. The other thing, and again, if you have the time and energy, I don't want David to be bashful in asking any of you from a specific walk of life to help with a given issue. And if you all are willing to sort of be on call with that, I'd ask David to reach out to you as necessary. But again, I want to reiterate, this report is not going to go on the shelf. This is an issue as a community that we really need to get our arms around. And I want us, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now, I want other communities, and I want all of us to look back and say that we did it the right way. I know all of you have been under tremendous pressure on this, and as you well imagine, I have too. And I can tell you I've had some sleepless nights saying, you know, it would just be a lot easier just to throw down the gauntlet and do A, B, C and sort of get this pressure off of me. But the fact is, we needed to be very comprehensive and very thoughtful about our approach, and that's what you all have done. Again, whether this comes to you as a community leader or a citizen or a religious leader, none of us would want to be in a situation that we see many of our citizens in. And just think about it. I mean, a loss of a job, a loss of a family, an addiction, any one of us could be there. And so we would expect, you know, the same from community leaders that are in this community, that there's going to be a helping hand. And that's what my pledge is to all of you. Again, I know that in some situations, whether you're a business owner like Renee or others, and there's bad behavior going on, and not all homeless people and not all people on the street are bad actors, but there are some bad actors. And the chief will tell you, and some of the contacts we made, some of these folks had warrants out for their arrest for serious issues. We're going to be very focused on making sure that we get those people who are creating that kind of environment out of that situation and in the appropriate place.
Other questions for Mayor Stephanson? Or comments? Dan.
Ed, just also to elaborate on your question about what can the individuals in this group do in between the 6-month periods or being involved. Just to let everybody know, I mean, on the police department side, we've already started to form some very good partnerships with Ken, with Bob, with Compass Mental Health, and we're in the process right now of scheduling. We have not moved so far yet as to embed a social worker into the police department, but what we're doing is transitioning into this and have some training set up with a core number of officers that are working downtown that are going to be trained in some of the services that are available to these individuals that we come in contact with. And so I've had great response, you know, and this is outside, I mean, it's in conjunction with this effort, but in between, and Pastor Savage, the issues have come up that I've called him, and he's been more than responsive. So from the police department perspective, you may very well get a call from myself or one of my staff as we're working through a lot of these initiatives, and I would just ask that you guys provide support like we've already seen in that response. Jim Upton has been outstanding working with the CHART team. So I guess I would just say from the police department side, for many of you, you may very well hear from us in between some of these reporting periods. But so far, the response has been great, and that's all been a result of the relationships that we've established here.
There's been an article recently in the newspaper about our hiring in the police department. We put extra resource and background check folks in place to try to accelerate our hiring. I think we've hired 7 officers here in the last 6 months or so, and probably another, I think, less than 20 now to hire. But one of the policing efforts that we're going to include as we get that staff up, and we're doing it now, but in place of some other activity that we've temporarily put on hold, and we're doing it, some of it with overtime. But I want officers out in the neighborhoods and out on the streets. I want them walking, I want them on bikes, I want them talking with citizens, I want them talking with folks. I want there to be an engagement so we know if there's an issue out there, we know what it is, and they're going to get the training necessary on the right way to deal with that situation. And that presence is going to stay there in a very positive way. We pride ourselves on neighborhood policing. If you go to the neighborhood meetings, our police officers are there reporting about issues in the neighborhood. But most importantly, our citizens know our officers in the vehicle, and we want our officers out of the vehicle talking with them, introducing themselves, because that's the best kind of network we can have. The other thing I would share with you, because there's nothing that you run into that if you think something is going wrong, I don't care if it's in your neighborhood, I don't care if it's downtown, if you see a behavior or a situation that does not seem right, please call 911, because if we don't know, whether to respond or not. So that's helpful as well.
I'm not sure whether Alan or Bob were first. You guys can sort it out.
I would just ask, Mayor, as we go forward, we've been about looking at the situation, looking at some ideas, and coming up with some recommendations. And hopefully from this point forward, there can be some focus on outcomes. And as opposed, and I know, I mean, you obviously spoke to that as you went through here, but that the process, it focuses on what are what do we want to achieve with these recommendations, and how are we doing, as opposed to us just checking them off and saying we've gotten through some number.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming and listening and being a part of this process, as well as working with the implementation through your staff. My comment to you would be, I think that you mentioned an idea of compassion in the community and hospitality. And I think that there are some really great recommendations and some long-range implementations that if the city is going to need to take some tough look at with some money and some funding. But I don't know how we move beyond, at times, characterizing all things that we may or may not see as fear-based versus reality of what is the situation. And so I want to just let you know that I am one of the minority opinions on the aggressive panhandling ordinance that you put forward. I believe that that's very subjective, and it asks and puts an unfair burden upon citizens as well as the police to make a judgment call on what is or what isn't aggressive panhandling. I think that there are better ways to address that, and I think one of the ways that you mentioned is by having police officers as well as citizens or different groups intermix and as Marilyn mentioned, get to know our neighbors versus just think our neighbors are someone that looks exactly like us, but to take a holistic approach on what the other and what a neighbor means. And so I'm just, you don't need to respond. I'm just letting you know that I'm at least going to, my name is in there. I hope you do look at, think about, I don't know, my thing is just that there's a lot of subjectivity in some of the things that are reported. And I hope that in a measure of aggressive panhandling, that would something that would not take priority overall.
I'd like to just respond in part. My conversations with Sylvia and Bob and others for the last several years is that, again, part of the symptom that we see of panhandling supports a lifestyle where people are not seeking the services that are available in our community. I used to be one of those folks that every time I drove up to an intersection, if there was someone there, I rolled down the window and gave them money, and Sylvia said, stop doing that. I mean, give it to the gospel mission. We can serve we can serve more comprehensively. And I think that that's really the spirit that I've looked at. That ordinance, and I guess we'll respectfully agree to disagree. A few years ago, Sylvia and I, through our church, Our Savior's Lutheran, our pastor, and there were half a dozen of us, went down to the Gospel Mission and had a meal there and slept out all night on the streets. And it was one of those nights, probably like last night, about 22 degrees. I slept in the back of my pickup, and I thought to myself, I don't care how long I have to work or how hard I have to work and be blessed to have a job, I never want to find myself in that situation.
Mark.
Mr. Mayor, thanks again. Really appreciate your coming. You made mention of the emphasis on housing, and you'll notice that one of our major recommendations is housing first. And I'm curious if you could comment on strategies that we should be aware of that really get at the economics of that and try and create you know, the money that's necessary to do that. We've heard about levies, we've heard about other things, and matching funds. I think Ed's pretty familiar with some of the mechanisms there, but I think it'd be good for us to hear your perspective on various strategies to, throughout the region, have a regional strategy to make sure that we're, you know, accessing what we can.
I will, although I'll admit to you from the get-go that is my thinking sort of preliminary at this point, and I certainly need to engage other leaders in the county. I touched on it earlier, which is all these great organizations that have been in our community for so many years, helping and supporting and getting people back on their feet, and the great work Cocoon House does with young people, and you know, Ed Peterson being really an institution in our community around housing and getting people back on their feet and get a job and get the training they need, parental training and all of the above. And those have been great efforts, but maybe, just maybe, it takes this kind of crisis of community where all of a sudden, it seems like everywhere we turn, we see an issue that's making us uncomfortable as citizens. We may feel unsafe, we may not like it, we may not like the way people look, and all of a sudden, there is just sort of this drumbeat, if you will, of we must do something to solve this problem. What I'm hoping is that maybe this is that moment in time where all of us as community leaders can have a very honest and direct and candid conversation with our citizens about the challenges we have. I think we're going to have to clearly define it. We're going to have to define what the cost is to begin to solve the housing and shelter issue in a much bigger way. And then I think there comes a point when we say to our citizens through a ballot measure, countywide, are you willing through a levy, some form of taxation, to put your resources to helping solve this problem? I think, what that looks like, what the mechanics are, what the legal part of that is, I don't know. But, you know, you all have lived this. Many of you live it every day in your jobs, but many of you have lived this, or all of you have lived this over the last several weeks, and just think about your awareness about this issue. We need that kind of awareness among our fellow citizens. And then we have to make the ask. And that's what I intend to do.
Other questions or comments? All right, well, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for coming and for convening this group and for your time and support of their efforts. I really very much appreciate it. everybody can start thinking about their closing comments. Thank you so much.
It's okay, the guy's on tape.
We're on it. Although it's a public record, I don't know. Okay, great. So I think it's time now just for all of you to have the opportunity to say something as we're closing up our last meeting here, whether it's just a comment for the good of the order, your favorite moment, your favorite learning, anything else you wanted to just share as we are heading out the door. And we'll come around and end with the co-chairs, and I'd like to thank folks as well. So
Are you just going to go around?
we can go around, or you can just do this randomly. What would you guys like to go around the table? Let's go around. All right, I'm going to start with you, David. Have at it.
I just really want to thank everybody. This has been a tremendous learning experience for me, and I will absolutely be drawing on the wisdom and energy of most or all of you in the implementation phase and beyond. I'm just really excited about moving forward. I don't think I realized what tremendous resources and passion we had in this city to address these issues until I was involved in this process. So thank you very much.
I want to thank you all, too, for the time and energy that you put toward this very important task. And I'm so delighted that we've all learned so much from one another. I also know that this community is very good about circling its wagons around a problem. So I'm convinced that as we move along, we're going to see some real successes, and you can count on me to be supporting them.
Well, I too want to thank everybody for your participation and just reiterate our commitment from the police department to be an active member of all the efforts moving forward. I think that just in the last 3 months, I know that our officers out on the street have taken a little bit different approach to these issues. I've talked to several of them who have actually gone on and watched the meetings and read the report, the draft report, and our understanding that we need to look at this in law enforcement from a little bit different perspective than what we have been, our traditional approach. And so I am excited and committed as the chief to being involved in that process moving forward, and I appreciate everybody's input, and I think that this report really does represent a balanced, deliberate, and thoughtful approach, and I appreciate that.
Okay. I just want to say it's been such an eye-opener to get a better understanding of you know, where different people are coming from in the community, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Everett grows and knowing that we have all this open space to create so much change and to bring the community together, and you know, really getting to know our neighbor and helping out each other, and then also seeing the resources that we have here. There's so much that I just didn't realize, and to make that real public for the community will be a really great direction. So.
I guess I would say I've noticed a lot of wariness and I guess some skepticism for people, some on the panel and also in some of our purple comments from the community. People worried that is this really going to be implemented, and are we really going to accomplish anything by having this meeting? And I am extremely optimistic, maybe because this is my first task force meeting that I've been on, and something because I volunteer at Seattle Animal Shelter and at a few different legal clinics, and when you think about a very large problem, I think about a Mother Teresa quote, which I pulled up on my phone. Never worry about numbers. Help one person at a time and always start with the person nearest you. And I think our street level social issues, it's a huge problem. It's a huge issue, but that we're already taking steps forward towards solving it. And I think you should feel accomplished, that we should feel accomplished, because even taking one step forward is making the world a better place, making Everett a better city. And so I feel very optimistic, and I think that we're gonna do great things.
For me, this has been a great learning experience since I've learned a lot more about the social services that are available in Everett. And I look forward to seeing what happens and getting some reports back.
Georgia D., I think you are a champion for the most number of field trips attended, so thank you. Yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah, I would say that I came in with certain pre-described notions and assumptions, and I think some of those notions and assumptions are no longer the same. And I have gone into a couple of those issues in the past, and I don't think I need to repeat them again.
Thank you, Mark.
You know, our community's been through a lot lately. I listened yesterday at the YMCA board meeting to Marysville School District officials kind of give a recount of things. And somebody pointed out, you know, between OSO and the shooting, and I mean, there aren't too many communities that go through that much stress and trauma. And then I think about what I've learned out of this task force with the epidemic of homelessness, and that's a tragedy too. And I guess I just remind everybody that, you know, it'd be real easy to get depressed about all that, but the number one thing to cure depression, more than drugs or anything else, is doing a kind act. And I hope our report is a kind act that allows us to go further.
I feel honored to be a part of this group. I've been downtown Everett for 21 years, and I tend to be quiet in a group, but I tend to have opinions about how things should go. And when Deborah asked me to be on this task force, and she said we would be meeting until Thanksgiving, at that time I thought, that is a lot of meetings, and that's a long time away, and I don't know if I can take that much time. But I just wanted to say that I think that it's been really valuable for me. My eyes have been opened. I've become more aware of what's going on downtown, out on the streets. When I look out there, I feel like I have an influence in what's going on just in this small group. And I too feel optimistic that we can make a difference. I will say that I wasn't so sure about that, and I'm glad to hear that this will not be shelved and that we have an opportunity to help implement the things that we've so diligently classified and qualified and made prioritized, is I guess what I want to say. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you, to get to know you better, and it's amazing how I can spend my life in a small footprint of Everett, in my North Everett neighborhood and in my store. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to have helped on this committee.
Thank you, Renee. Matthew.
I'm certainly grateful to have been invited into the conversation and get to participate, to represent Journey Church, but also some of the other faith organizations. I am optimistic as well. I think I share some of that optimism. We are deeply committed to the city, and the city is people. And so as a church and as an organization, as myself, We love the city, we love the neighborhoods, and we want to be a blessing. We want it to be such that if our church was to ever close its doors, that our neighbors would mourn. They would be sad to see a church that contributed to the lives of people and the community in a meaningful way. And so we hope to be here for the long haul and to participate in an ongoing and future way to the quality of life and also the spiritual well-being of the citizens of Everett.
Just want to echo the optimism as well that I feel as being part of this group. You know, being a service provider, it can be easy to be tucked away into my little corner there on Rucker and feel sort of like a lone ranger, but being part of this has been really helpful and eye-opening to see that a lot of the community do care, and we are looking forward to moving forward and making some good changes for the most vulnerable in our community.
Ed?
So first of all, as a professional social worker, I am delighted the police department is going to invite a social worker to the inside of their practice. I want to ride in a police car someday with you.
All right, you're on.
You don't get to carry a gun, though.
Oh.
But that's siren.
You know, this issue is polarizing in our community, and I expected that polarization to show up here, and I was quite surprised and very delighted with the tone of hospitality that exists throughout this group and the sensitivity to the needs of the people that are on the streets. They're not there by choice, and I think we all realize that. They're there because they don't have other alternatives. And the work that we did together was around that respect for both the importance of our community, our businesses, our residents' safety, balanced with the needs of the people that are unfortunate enough to have to be out on the streets. But I think thirdly and most importantly, the fact that our mayor has stepped up on this issue is the thing that excites me the most. I've seen him work, and we've all seen him work on higher education. We've seen him work on aerospace and retaining Boeing in our community. We know his leadership abilities. And I'm just excited that he's taken this issue on and has come to us and said that this is not going to be shelved. This is going to be his agenda. He's going to work on this issue. And I'm absolutely delighted with that and want to do whatever I can to help him succeed at this.
Yeah, I wanted to, I wholeheartedly agree with what the mayor said about us being an example community. I mean, there's a lot of people across the country that are tackling this issue and trying to tackle this issue and making great recommendations, but very few have approached it with the time and consideration that we all have. And I have so much respect for each one of you and all of our differing and similar opinions, and I think that we are a model community and we can set a new standard for how we support all citizens in our community and how we deal with these issues. And I just, the longer I live and work in this community, the more I love this community. And I think it's just, it's amazing how we come together. And so I am super excited. I think that we're going to do great things with this. And I absolutely love the number of recommendations. I know we're not going to accomplish all 63, but what I see that is we have some short-term achievable goals that we can have some early wins and some things we like check off our lists and get done. And then there's some stretch goals for our community and things that we can really strive and work towards. And so I see it as just really a great plan that we can implement for a really long time. And I want to thank David Hall for your leadership and pulling us together, and all the representatives from the city and county. And Karen, thank you for your facilitation as well. And I also echo everyone's comments. I am so appreciative to have a mayor that did pull this together. So thank you.
I'm also very grateful for being included, and I also learned a lot. I learned a lot about the services that are offered and also more about the business perspective. And I wanted to just chime in that as a group, we could also support some of the state level funding for groups like Cocoon House that recently lost their outreach amounts. So if David wants to call on us to contact our legislators, then we're definitely available to do that. And I'd also really support a ballot levy to make the big impacts that we need to see community-wide, county-wide.
I really want to thank the diversity of the group. To come from so many different sectors, I wasn't sure how that would work, and it did, and beautifully. And I look forward to the opportunity to not only have the outcomes in Everett, but so many of our programs are outside of Everett. Many of us are county-wide, and so how do we take this information and really share it so that we are not reinventing in every city that we work in what we found could be some of the outcomes at work. So I look forward to working with everyone more.
I've lived in other communities with even more resources than we have here in Everett, and I've served on committees that where I had a pretty large scope of responsibility, 13 states in one area. But nothing like this particular service has given me any more intrinsic value or growth than I've experienced with this. I am so happy to have met and be acquainted with those of you who I haven't met before. And as we said, this is a community that we should all be proud of. It will move forward, and I look forward to being serving on this particular effort and moving forward with it.
I'm just grateful for the opportunity to develop the relationships with and collaborate with services in the community, and the direct relationships with officers on the street that we're developing, and to represent Evergreen Manor is an honor, and it's you know, it's working in our world right now. So we're out there doing it. So thank you.
Like all of you, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be part of this, and I would ask as we go forward here that we not underestimate the power or value of the cooperation that has been shown in all of these meetings, the understanding that's been developed of where individuals and where different organizations are coming from, and the sense of trust that exists among us for being able to express our opinions. There's a lot of things that, as you know, that need to get done that are smaller than this big, combined project, and we now know how to get a hold of each other. We know we can reach out, and there's a lot that we can do together every day as we go forward. Thanks.
And I too would agree that this has been a great process. Been a lot of good sharing that's gone on, some old relationships that have been rekindled and intensified in terms of work outside of the group, and some new relationships that have developed. I can tell you that Chief Templeman and his staff have been reaching out more to a number of the agencies, including the county. I can also tell you that other city staff are working with the county staff on looking at more housing options in the city of Everett. And that has increased, improved, intensified since the beginning of this task force. So I see this as a cup half full and getting fuller. And the key to that success is going to be what we do starting tomorrow and the next day. And it's not going to be other people doing it for us. We've got to be part of that leadership. I also have to give a lot of credit to Mayor Stephanson to stand up here in a public meeting where he was being taped and actually say that, you know, if we want to do more than what we're doing now, we may need more resource, and that's going to require every one of us to reach into our pocket. It's not too often you see an elected official being willing to say something like that on tape. So kudos to him.
I think I echo everyone. I'm very grateful to have been asked to serve on this board, and maybe contrary to popular recent comments, I am hopeful for the capacity to change a community. My first statements when asked to share from a faith community standpoint have remained the same, and that is my first impressions of Everett have not changed. My first impressions of Everett as a caring community, a place where people care and truly desire to do amazing, creative, and hospitable acts toward their neighbor, remains the same and has only been stronger. And I believe that those who overlook the beautiful and the wonderful people, as well as those who might be struggling, are really missing out on a very good first impression of a community.
I appreciate everyone's comments. I agree with all of them. I want to start real quick. My comments are fairly short, but I want to thank a few people, or a few groups of people. The first one being the staff. And I know it's hard to see all of the work that they did behind the scenes, but we would not be sitting here right now with the report that we have if they hadn't done everything that they did. And Karen, David, everybody on the staff committee that worked on this, thank you very much for all the time that you put into this. I saw it, Sylvia saw it. I think everyone sees the results of it, so thank you for all that you did. The other group, though, that I think that we haven't thanked yet are all the people that have come to these meetings. We have had a great attendance and audience that has come. We've had good comments in the papers that we've received. We had good comments in the public meeting that we had, and great comments from the focus group that Sylvia put together. So I think we have a lot of input that came from a lot of people that need to be thanked. And when you see them, if you see people that did speak, I hope that you thank them too as we move through the community and try to roll out our communications on our recommendations. The only thing I think I'll add to that is I'm optimistic too. I think the work really comes from here. I mean, this is phase one. Phase two goes, and we meet in 6 months, and we talk about measures, and we talk about what we've been able to accomplish. And David, you're a brave man and a good leader, and I'm excited to see where we are in 6 months, because I have high expectations, and I think the community has high expectations of where we go from here. It doesn't mean that it's all accomplished in 6 months.
My main metric is whether I still have a job in 6 months.
And my last thing is, I have 3 young sons. I'm an attorney in the community. I'm on the planning commission. I have 3 young sons. They range in the age of 5 to 1 that was born on July 16th of this year, just before we started. I'm proud to be in this community. I am proud to sit here with you folks. I am proud of the services that we have in this community. We have huge hearts sitting in this community and sitting at this table. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in 6 months.
Okay, forget that. I can't get it out. So, dittos to a lot of things that have been said. I'm a transplant from Pierce County, and so I've always thought that Snohomish was the best collaborative place I've ever worked, and I still think that. And this task force has really put a lot of pressure on Everett Gospel Mission in the sense that you guys pop people out of the woodwork who want to do something. So I get calls every week, so I'm ready to do something. So I will say that to say we've stirred up hope and we've stirred up cynicism. So I've got the people ready to go to work and they want to know what they can do, which is pressure, and I've got the people who said, you guys are just a bunch of talk and I want to see what you're going to do. So the challenge is great, and we're up for the challenge. I think Chris and I, we're committed to speaking about this in the community in a way that portrays the passion, commitment, and the we're going to get something done attitude. I love what the mayor had to say. I wrote down everything, so even if I don't see, I got my points in here. You know, we're going to deal with it legally by looking at it in full spectrum. We're going to focus on the most vulnerable. We're going to determine where our values really are, and we're not going to move the issue down the street. I'm on him. So, I mean, in a nice way, Mayor, in a nice way. So I was glad I was the last person, because I wanted to say, this isn't an issue. This is about people. And I so was drawn to know that on Tuesday when outside the mission there was a young lady about 34, 35, and because of this task force, I walked up to her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I'm okay." And I said, "You need to be at the women's shelter. Are you out on the street tonight when it's going to be 29 degrees? And she said, "Yeah, but I'm getting tired." And I said, "Well, when you're finally tired enough, you tell them Sylvia said that you get to come in tonight." And that was at 8:30. I want you to know at 5:30 she was dead because she OD'd. So I'm saying that to say this isn't something we can move through slowly. We need to get this done so that who's ever on the street tonight at 28 degrees is not on the street a year from now. I want housing for folks. I want their services met, because for me, that really said to me, it's life and death. It's just not being nice to people. It is saving their lives. So I'm compassionate about it. I'm ready to go to work. And thank you, team. I loved it. And thank you guys for all the hard work you put in. Thank you.
I would like to ask for a round of applause for our co-chairs, because we could not have done it without them. They spend time with us every single week giving us feedback and ideas to help us keep on a positive track. And I also just really quickly want to thank the Brain Trust that I got the pleasure of working with. David and Deborah and Wendy, we were on the phone every week trying to figure out what's coming next. How can we be responding to this and that and everything else? And I will miss working with you guys on this. It's been great fun.
And I want to thank Karen. She's done a fantastic job.
Thank you, David. It really has been a pleasure. I have been so impressed to see this group come together, to see the leadership in this room, to see how you've learned from each other and how you built the consensus that you have. And I hope you will take to heart something that Bob said. I really believe you are a force, a powerful force in this community as a group, a force that can accomplish wonderful change, that the change that you have identified that you seek. You have that capacity to move together as a group and get those things done. And I really hope you'll do that, because I believe I really nailed it in terms of some great ideas for the benefit and the positive outcomes in this community. So that's all I wanted to say, other than thank you to each and every one of you. It has been really a pleasure to work with you. And unless there is anything further, we are wildly adjourned early, and we have time to sort of hang out and say thank you and to everyone. And again, enjoy your evening. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing great things about the next steps. We are adjourned.